Okay, here is a story, an example of, for me, how I have watched the way that passive brain, receptive mind, which is what I have, one of the ways where it's showed up for me. And this is kind of a big picture one. Like there are many smaller examples, but this one comes to mind because in hindsight, looking back at this experience, it was like, oh, yeah, that fits so perfectly. And so anyway, let me see if the words come out. I never really know. Yeah, well, that's a whole other story too. I have a defined throat with a lot of conscious gates, but the more and more that I surrender to my design, it's that whole receptivity thing takes over, and I really just don't know what's going to come out. Yeah, I never know if it can come out, if it's going to come out, and it's always easier if somebody's pulling it out. But anyway, that's another thread that maybe I'll get into another time. Who knows? So I am in this, I say healing process, physical rehabilitation process. It's been almost 2 years. Actually, it's been longer, but from the time that it really went into kind of crisis, or, put me into not non-functionality in the normal way that I was used to, was 2 years ago, almost. And the thing is, yeah, I'm not working at this moment. For 2 years, I haven't been working. I haven't been teaching. I stopped doing movement because I personally, I can't move normally, naturally. Naturally, that's not true. My body's still moving naturally, but in its way of its limitations and anyway. But I stopped doing what I was doing before, and I'm basically just in this process. That's all. That's it. I'm in this process day in and day out, and it's had many phases where I've been more like where I've gone outside more, gone for walks and this and that and the other, and it's the last months I'm in a phase where I spend most of my time lying down, and I don't go out very often. But I've been through a number of phases. A phase where it was a lot of psyche stuff in the language of Germanische Heilkunde, or Germanic New Medicine. It is constellations, and hitting, the psyche, me having changes in my psyche, that was a really tough phase. Lasted, I don't know, a few weeks. And then had like lesser, like not as intense phases for some more months. Phases where it was more, I don't know. I don't feel like getting into that right now. But the thing is that through each phase of this, I found myself using, and I still am using, all these things that I investigated in the years prior. So in 2020, we went on lockdown, the world went on lockdown, and I had a dance school, and my dance school suffered over the next year. I don't even know how we kept things going for the year, but somehow we made it through the year, and my dance school went from like 200 something students to 40 or 50. And then personally, I had already been on this journey of how do I get out of running this dance school, because it was just overwhelming for me. I love teaching and dancing, but running organizational wise, the dance school I was done. I was done for a long time, but I couldn't get out. I didn't see how to get out. And so the natural, what happened with all the lockdowns basically gave me the out. And so my school closed in 2021. And I was like, what's next? I need to, and here's the thing, I need to focus and find the next thing. And I had already taken a Pilates course for the year. And so I got Pilates certified, and was teaching classes, and just a few classes on my own and not in a Pilates school. And I was digging more into movement things. I did something called Gyrokinesis, which is a part of gyrotonic, and was getting certified in that. So I was adding that into the movement classes I was teaching. I was still teaching a little bit of solo jazz, but I didn't really, and I didn't really know exactly where I was going. This is not coming out well at all. I can feel it's not. Yeah. This is the thing. The words left. The words have left. And there are none coming out. So I don't know. Maybe I'll even post this. This is the experience. It's like, I can't plan what to say. I used to kind of do that. It would be really stressful. Especially like preparing classes and things. I remember stressing sometimes about preparing because my mind doesn't work in that like planning focused kind of way. Like it works best if things just drop in. Like if I can allow spaciousness and not knowing and sit in that, like be present in that, then things float in and pieces come together and they connect. But if I try to connect and make a plan and this, that, and the other, I get stressed. It feels forced. I feel not prepared. I need to prepare more and more and more and more. And of course, that's my conscious line one that never feels prepared enough. And when I first started doing like speaking and doing videos on YouTube, I remember like kind of having an idea of what I was going to say and then talking about that. But the more that I've surrendered to the void, to the not knowing, to the unconscious part of me, instead of the conscious and the not self part of me running the script, but allowing for the unconscious part of me to rule and to guide, to be the leader of this movie that I'm living and watching. Planning really doesn't work, and I really can't control. Like here I was thinking this was going to be about one thing, and now I'm moving into something else, and even now I'm losing the focus in quotes. I don't know where I'm going, and I kind of don't even know what I said. And this is what I experience a lot as with the way that my cognition works. So I have a passive brain, which is the impulse of it is inner vision. So that's my cognition, is inner vision. And I experience that as, it's an inner seeing. It's like this eye inside that sees. So I either see words or I don't see words. That's how it feels to me. Like I see the words coming out or the words that need to be said, but right before I need to say them, or I see certain images that connect together and then that starts coming out, or I don't. And when I don't, I've learned more and more to just shut up. Yeah, so I'm a lot more silent than I used to be. I'm a lot more still than I used to be. Because if I don't inner see something to do, then I've been learning to surrender to, there's nothing to do. My mind sometimes will go crazy, like, and if you don't, of course, because the world is about doing and doing and doing. And looking at my design, you can see has nothing to do with doing. I'm a splenic projector with no motors defined, and this passivity that's in my variables. There's a lot of receptive passive. I'm 3 parts right. So that's a lot of what would look to the world as nothingness, but it's a lot of waiting. Yeah. Presence, just being present. And then sometimes something comes. So there's a lot of inconsistency when you compare to what society says things should look like. I am super inconsistent. And I used to think that was a huge, huge problem. Because it looks like it. Side by side with generators and manifesting generators who go, these energizer bunnies, especially the manifesting generators, who just move and move and move and move. And then someone who's built like me, inconsistency, a lot of space between things being said or happening. And yeah, I've more and more surrendered to that. But I've also had this space of the last couple of years where, because I needed to stop everything and I couldn't make anything happen. Like nothing after closing my dance school. Wow, I'm coming back to that. That's really funny. After closing my dance school, nothing was taking off. I had studied massage therapy and then other things related like myofascial release, lymphatic drainage. There's a massage called Qine Tsang, which is a Taoist abdomen massage. I studied that. I did craniosacral therapy. What else did I do? I did a couple, maybe 1 or 2 other hands-on things. And so I was starting to work with massage and that and kind of hands-on therapies, and started having a few people coming to see me, and I was working mostly out of my house, and I felt like, okay, this is where I'm moving. And at the same time, I was teaching my movement classes. Okay, that's where I'm going. So it's like the movement and hands-on therapy, and what can I do with that? And then I was studying human design, and I was starting to go into analyst training. And then something in me said, stop the analyst training and just soak up what human design, like I need to feel it. I need to live it. I need to feel it. I'm going to have that line 3, the fact that I'm the inner vision. Like I need it to, over time, create image of a learned experience in my eye, my inner eye, for me to really grasp it. Where like just going through, like just knowing it in my head, it doesn't work for me. Like it needs to be very lived, and that takes time. And so there was something in me that knew that I needed to just experience the energies that I was learning about in human design, so that they weren't keynotes, words here and there to explain centers, gates, channels, but actually be something lived. Like I could feel, what does that channel feel like when I'm with that person who has it, and that person who has it, what does that channel feel like? What do those gates feel like when they're hitting me or not hitting me? Like what does a generator feel like? What does a manifesting generator, like really to feel the things that I was learning. What do these different planets feel like? What do transits feel like? What do the variables in different people feel like? I need to sense that more than just book knowledge, so to speak. And so there was something in me that said, stop and just live it. And then I went backwards to the beginning, and I did all of the basic human design courses again, but more of like my natural way, which is no agenda. Like when I started studying human design, like I was, like a lot of people who find it, and especially projectors, because you explains all the people around you and explains why you had the experiences that you had. And so I'm conditioned to have an agenda also. I'm losing my dance school. I have no other job. So here's something that I can do for work. Okay, so now I need to study this fast. I need to get through all the courses fast. I have a completely open route. So I was definitely in a hurry. I went through the first courses like in a few months. I started studying in, September. And by January, I was doing Living Your Design Guide, and then in February I was analyst training, but I hadn't lived it. I was learning, the book learning about it, but I hadn't really lived it. And then but I was on this fast track. I need to do this because I need to work at something. Like, how am I going to sustain myself? My dance school is closed. My massage thing is, slow. The movement stuff is, still slow, but I can also do human design. And I could just feel myself like grasping for what the next thing needed to be for me to work with. Like, I need to work. And then, I found myself, that inner voice that was like, nope, you're going to stop this and you're going to, start from the beginning and just take it in as frequency. That's what's more natural to me. I need to take things in as frequency. So, which, if you were talking to Abith, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, that wouldn't be even a word that I would pass my lips. And the thing is that I've always read frequency. Like, now when I look back, I've always read energy and frequency, but never trusted any of that, of what I was sensing. Never really trusted it. Never understood it. And that is something huge that human design gave me, especially when I started my investigation again, but from a point of like, what is the frequency? What are the frequencies of these things that I'm learning? And I need to feel them. And so my next phase of human design, starting from scratch again in terms of the basic courses with another teacher, and then not having an agenda with it, just in it just because. And I started allowing myself that. I started giving my space to just because. And then at some point, I did that for some months. And then at some point, I also got another hit of like, okay, stop now, just live. I'll just live it. Give yourself some incubation period and just live it. And who knows what this is going to be about? Because working with human design, I kind of tried that to get that off and get off the ground. And that didn't go anywhere either. And so that kind of just went to the back burner in terms of, what am I going to do with this? But it was about living it and experiencing it and knowing it in my bones, in terms of energy and frequency. And that has really been as key for me, that piece. Something, all right, there's a pause now in the words. You're on this journey with me. My mind doesn't go linearly. That's the thing about this passive receptive brain mind, that there's not a linearity to it necessarily. I mean, in my design, I have a logical throat gate that's fueled from my spleen. So I have the channel of talent, and that definitely creates a sense of logic within my system. And if I am teaching something, I can really logically teach it, particularly if it's not so much a mind thing, but if it's a body thing, which makes sense coming from the spleen to the throat. So, if I'm teaching you how to dance something, or if I'm teaching you how to move, in this way or that way, if I'm teaching, I can be very logical in that way. But then you have this mind of mine that really works based on what I feel is like clouds moving around and dropping things in. So that's kind of what happens. Oh, yeah, I feel like, am I going to talk about the Germanische Heilkunde piece, the Germanic new medicine? Because that was another thing I started studying and started thinking, oh, then I can work with this. I needed it for myself, to understand disease, to understand symptoms and what was going on in the body and the root cause of it. And, I got there from a lot of digging in terms of the health world. I'm not going to go in depth with that right now, but that was another thing that I was like, oh, if I study this, and I signed up for a course, an educator course, in other words, over time, to learn how to educate others in the knowledge, in the biological knowledge of Germanische Heilkunde. And Yeah, that didn't go anywhere either, except it was another piece I needed. And all of these pieces that I was studying, investigating, I feel like I'm missing another one, but they've been all things that since this physical thing that popped off for me in 2 years ago, which are like layered motor conflicts. So I live with, a lot of shaking and contraction and spasming, and my muscles little by little are coming back to function, and my joints back to mobility little by little. But yeah, that's another piece that I studied, that I've been using a lot. All these things, I'll say it in a minute, but all these things that I was investigating weren't about me working necessarily. Who knows in the future? I have no idea. But I was so fixated on that. The strategic way of focusing on something to get the next step and the next step and the next step. And like, this is the path. You study this, you get the certification, and then you start doing this. And people recognize you because you have the certification, and has nothing to do with my process. For me, if I float around in stuff, and as a 1-3, that stuff needs to be useful to me. And then as an outcropping of that, or an outgrowth of that, it could potentially be useful for somebody else. But I'm a 1-3. It's about me. It's about my process and my investigation and my adventuring into different things and investigating them deeply and repeating with my channel of talent. Repeating. Try it. Doesn't work there. Try it there. Perfect it. How does this go? Correct it. And so when things got really intense for me, July 2024, I found myself with this well of things that I knew in my bones that as needed, I would grab things that I had studied and practiced, and they would be so useful and necessary for me in rehabbing myself. I am rehabbing myself. I sometimes go and get massage, but that's it. The rest is me rehabbing myself. And I'm talking about, like, if I were to go to the doctor, I don't know, I could be diagnosed as, ALS or MS, or, there were times where it looked more like what would be called Parkinson's, or there were times it looked like more like Tourette's, or times it looked more like epilepsy. It depended on the phase. I've gone through all these different phases. But yeah, I would have a diagnosis that would mean, in conventional medicine, that, everything's going downhill from here to the end of my life. It's just, get on meds, manage it, try to live with it, And my path has been, no, surrender fully to it, even though it means like everything else stops. And thankfully, I've had financial support from family to be able to do that, to be able to, pay my bills, live really simply, and just surrender to the process of, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to rehab myself. And I've been rehabbing myself. And finding my inner authority, and in particularly, linking into my cognition of inner vision, and trusting that, learning to trust that before this happened, having learned to trust that in other experiences, I held on to that so tightly. It's what informs me of what to do, when to do during this rehab process, like everything. Like inner C, now I need this. Inner C, now I need that. Inner C, there's nothing to do. When I'm in the middle of some, super pain, and to inner C, like, there's nothing to do but wait through the pain. Stay in this position. It's a very painful position, but I need to stay in it and allow for the pain to work itself through, because it is part of the tissue coming back online. I've used, the knowledge that I've had of massage and craniosacral and myofascial, used, the movement. And then I had studied something called anatomy in motion, which is, if you've heard of Gary Ward and his Finding Center, and he has something called the flow motion model, which taught me so much about joints, the movement of joints in conjunction with each other, the way that, I'm using that constantly, like understanding why when my foot goes into this contraction here, why is that, how is that meaningful for my hip, and then all the way up to my head, and I can trace these movement patterns, and I can see why my contraction is happening like this, because I can see the movement pattern that my body is trying to bring back online. I use that constantly as a check-in of, now how is this joint now? Where am I now in the process? Okay, this joint is moving more like this, these joints are moving more like that. That was another thing that I had studied with this idea of I was started bringing it into my movement classes. I was thinking to work more in it one-on-one, blah, blah, blah. It didn't go anywhere, but it's been invaluable for me. The flow motion model, I don't know if I can tell you everything about it, but I can feel it in my bones. I've used that as a really important map in rehabbing myself. So yeah, I'm not going to a physical therapist. I'm not going to a doctor. Call me crazy. I am. I don't care. My inner vision, my personal authority, my inner authority has not impulsed me to seek anything other than massage, and sometimes to not do massage, because it actually sometimes makes me feel worse. Not worse in terms of pain necessarily, but worse because of the feedback of, I thought I was doing better there than I am, when I get the feedback of the touch. And sometimes I don't need that. I just need to feel I need to feel the progress and not be reminded that it's not as much progress as I was hoping, because this is very small, little steps of getting better that it's hard to see from one day to the next. And I have to look in terms of months to see my progress. Oh, okay. I've blabbed around. So if you've listened to this, then you've seen what it is to not have a focused mind. My mind is not focused. I don't have anybody here with me focusing it. So this is what we got. But what's funny is that some of the things that I felt like I was going to say in the beginning journeyed around, and then they came back. So moral of the story is the agendalessness of being receptive, not having an agenda, because you just don't know, all these things that I was putting energy into, thinking it was going to lead me to the next step in terms of work. And here I am, not working at all, but taken care of amazingly. So that I can actually, allow myself to surrender into my inconsistency, my silence and my stillness. I can surrender into this rehab process, and I can, use everything that I studied, everything that I was studying, I definitely have been using during this process. I needed all of those pieces, and I had no clue what I needed them for. I really didn't know what I needed them for. I thought it was one thing, and it was something else. It was for me. It was for me to go through this with all these things that have allowed me to be more or less peaceful in the process, and to be not as afraid, because I have gone through some very scary moments during this process. And I've been able to just wait until the fear passes and stick with it. And, if I see that it's not to do anything, then it's not to do anything. And I just need to trust that. And, so this is the thing. It's surrendering to this mechanism of just not having a clue. but floating around in different knowledge systems, floating around in different experiences, and just letting them come in the layers that they come in, you know, and all the different, the frequency of things, the concepts, you know, all of that, to just layer in and not really know how it's going to come out or what needs to come out, when, why, you know, none of that, but being willing to just be like, okay, I have no agenda. Here I am. You know, like an animal. I've been watching a lot of horse videos lately, and I love watching how, you know, when they're just, here I am, you know, just attuned to my surroundings, just attuned, just here I am. You know, different animals you see, just here I am. Nothing to prove, nothing to do. Don't need to earn my right to be here in this life, on this earth. I just am. And then life unfolds, and as it unfolds, trusting that what I digest in a natural, non-strategic, non-focused way, but it just happens, trusting that will be the filling the well that I need for whatever, because I just don't know. Who knows? I have no idea what's next. None. I have right now, this moment, where I've have a sense that I spoke a lot, and very curious if anybody followed my meandering until the end. And if you did, thank you. Thank you for your energy and attention. And I hope you got whatever you needed from this. Yeah. Until next time, whenever that is.